So we're joined by Kevin Richert of Idaho Ed News.
Hi.
It's been a busy week on Capitol
Yes.
Hill. A lot of things happening. Secretary's there. New budget comes out. What were your big takeaways?
Well, I think what we got this week was a little bit more detail and a little bit more meat on the bones of this budget. The numbers weren't a surprise because the basic numbers have been out for 2 months.
We knew the total.
We knew the numbers were going to go down as far as education is concerned, and we knew in general terms where this White House wanted to cut and where this White House wanted to put money. And both of those changes are really important and really far-reaching if they were to come to pass. A long way from there, obviously, but you sense and you have more detail now of just what a fundamental shift in education priorities that this administration is embracing.
So big changes in DC, but how do those trickle down to Idaho? What's it mean here?
A couple of big programs that affect Idaho schools to a large degree. There is a program that's on the chopping block that provides money for teacher training, professional development. It allows schools to hire teachers to kind of reduce class sizes. We're only talking about $10 million in the state, not a huge amount of money in the context of the education budget, but almost every school district and charter gets a share of that money, so the impacts are very far-reaching. Another program that's on the chopping block is funds before school and after school programs and summer school programs, targeted especially at high poverty schools and high poverty districts. You have over 40 of these programs around the state funded through this federal program that would be zeroed out if the White House gets its way.
And what were the responses? I mean, were people happy? Was the school chief happy? Were our congressmen happy?
Well, the reaction from the congressional delegation was lukewarm at best. And the prevailing sentiment was, well, that's the administration's blueprint of where it wants to spend money, but we're Congress, we decide that. We'll write the budget from here. So not a warm embrace of this budget from the Idaho congressional
delegation. A lesson in the separation of powers there.
Yes, a civics lesson from the legislative branch. State Superintendent Sherry Ibarra, I found her reaction fascinating because it was a significant departure from where she'd been just a few weeks ago. Like I said, the numbers have been out, so no big surprises in the numbers. At first, Superintendent Ibarra was saying, I think it's all going to kind of work out. Some numbers go up, some numbers go down, really embracing the overarching theme from the administration this week. She said this is unacceptable. I can't go for a budget that cuts education spending, which is what they've been talking about all along. Went so far as to say, I think I'd like to get Education Secretary Betsy DeVos to come to Idaho and see the impacts of these budget cuts in one of the reddest states in the union. I would be fascinated if Betsy DeVos were to take up Sherry Ibarra's invitation and come to Idaho.
One heck of a press conference.
It would be must-see political theater. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm not giving up hope either.
So do we know what changed for Sherry? Was there a moment where she decided, oh, I'm reading this differently, or something changed?
I don't really know. I mean, the cynical take is always to say, look, we're in an election year or we're in an election cycle. Superintendent Ibarra is up for re-election. She already has an opponent in the primary. She will almost assuredly have an opponent in the general election. And 6 weeks is a lot of time in what's happening in federal politics right now. A lot has changed in 6 weeks in terms of the way this administration is being seen. So, it may be a little bit easier even for a Republican state official to distance herself from this Republican administration that is having a lot of popularity issues at the national scale and presumably at the state scale.
And one thing that hasn't been easy is trying to get these new science standards developed here in Idaho. I mean, that's an ongoing saga that we're in year 3 of this now?
Yeah, third year, third set of standards were released last week. And if you look at the wording, you get a sense of how complicated this issue is politically. The wording is designed to try to thread a needle here between legislators who are very reluctant to address climate change in these standards in any manner, and you have a public that is fairly outspoken saying, we do want science standards that do address climate change. So you're having to thread the needle between another round of public comments that seem to be overwhelmingly in support of robust science standards and a robust discussion of climate change, and a legislature that made pretty clear last year, it made pretty clear during the 2017 session, that they're reluctant to have much of a mention of climate change in the standards. All goes back to the legislature in 2018, so this saga is by no means concluded.
So I guess in 2018 we'll get to see if the political climate has changed.
It is. It's a political issue right now as much as it is an academic issue, but the science standards are a big deal to schools. They may only be the minimum because schools can always do more, but they do set that baseline. And that's an important baseline for schools, especially in smaller communities, especially in rural communities. It gives a sense of what does the state want these schools to address in terms of science. So it's important.
Well, we look forward to reading about that over the summer and into 2018. Thank you so much for all your expertise this year, Kevin.
Thank you.